Wait for it, and we're live. Hey, all you crazy sci-fi and fantasy fans. It's time for your daily dose of shenanigans over here at the Blasters and Blades podcast. Just a couple of nerdy veterans and one chaos coordinator geeking out over our science fiction passions and fantastical fantasies. A place where magic is king, the sky is the limit, and space is the place. We are the podcast that puts the fun in dysfunction. So without further ado, we're going to let our guests introduce themselves. We're going to start with Miss Jana S Brown, who has many personalities, and who knows who we'll get today.
What? Who? Where? Me? Oh, wait, where's my hat? No, I'm Jana S Brown. I also write under Jenna Ray as for science fiction and fantasy, and I'm excited to be here. We're going to talk about one of my very, very favorite things.
All right, so the next question is, how long, Melissa, this is a question for you. How long do you have to know her before you meet the other personalities? Because I've met Jana and Jenna. I haven't met the others yet.
Not very long. It depends on the day.
Okay.
Depends on the day. Mm-hmm.
So I just need to pay more attention. Okay, I got it. I got the mission. All right, next we got Mr. James J.E. Pittman.
Hey guys, coming to you live, tape delay from Winston-Salem and Saga and Congregate. I'm super excited to talk about Indy. I've got my hat.
He's got the hat.
Right.
It's my trademark. And I have my Grail journal all ready to go.
Okay.
Do you carry your whip around with you everywhere?
LaVoice has got that ready.
All right.
For different reasons, and we don't judge. All right. So next, we've got Miss Melissa McShane.
Hi, I'm Melissa McShane. I write lots of different kinds of fantasy novels, and I'm old enough that I saw this movie in the theater when I was a teenager. And I used to have the hat, believe it or not. I used to wear the hat in school because they let you wear hats in school when I was a child back in the Stone Ages. Don't know where it went. Sad.
Did you ever meet Thag Simmons?
No.
Oh, so you're not that old. Okay.
I'm not that old. Sorry. Different class. Of pre-2000. Yeah, something like that.
Are you ready for us, Michael? Or are you just playing with your whip? Oh, he's getting his hat.
Oh, he's getting his hat. There we go. Now see if we'd all had the hat. That would be
all right, Michael, can you introduce yourself?
Got all the stuff.
It's not the official hat. This one's actually leather, and the band is long since vanished. But he got his out, so I had to get mine.
Can you introduce yourself to the listeners and viewers at home?
Well, of course. Hi, I'm Michael LaVoice, author of Galaxy's Most Wanted, and soon to be a new series coming out here in the next, I hope, 6 months called Gladius Leagues. And I'm a huge Indiana Jones fan. I've loved the first 3 films, and Last Crusade was actually my favorite because, of course, it has the man, the myth, the legend, Sean Connery. So,
yeah,
he's my boy.
Okay. Well,
and I am old enough to have seen it in theaters. It was one of my very first dates, and I remember when Dude Man's face melted, my date went, cool. And yet she wasn't the one. I don't know how that worked out that way, but I'm okay. I made out better in the long run.
Maybe because she didn't have blue hair.
So we're going to do the religion questions a little differently today because you guys have all been guests multiple times. You've answered all the questions. So what's your favorite indie film? You can all Indiana Jones film. You could all sort of chime in as you're ready.
Oh, definitely Last Crusade.
Yeah. Last Crusade is my favorite.
Sean Connery, Indiana Jones.
I like the Temple of Doom.
Temple of Doom.
I did not particularly care for the Temple of Doom, mainly because I despise prequels as a general rule. Don't like them. And it was a prequel. And it was a prequel that they used visual gags to harken back to Raiders for. And I was like, that sucks. But wasn't terrible. I don't like prequels. So that's a hard one because there are aspects of Raiders and aspects of Last Crusade that I just love about each. But in my heart of hearts, I'm probably going to have to go with Last Crusade.
Okay, what about you, James?
Yeah, definitely Last Crusade. Like Raiders always holds a special place, but Last Crusade really just refined it. It really hit all the points.
Question though, did The Big Bang Theory at any point ruin Raiders for you? Anybody? Just me? Just me. Okay. All right.
They did that stupid
Just you.
down the street thing or whatever.
Well, it was the thing where, Indiana Jones was completely unnecessary to the story.
They still would have got the arch. They still would have opened it.
Right. And everything would have happened just the same. It was like...
It's like, you're not wrong, but screw you guys.
Exactly.
Not the point. Sometimes it goes back to the romance thing, and I can say this as a romance author. The story is the important part, because in romance, we know that our love interests are going to meet somewhere in the beginning, and at the end, we want them to ride off into the sunset happily ever after. The story they're interested in is what happens in between, and I think a lot of Indiana Jones, especially with Raiders, where we were first coming to understand who this person was and that kind of thing, we just wanted to see him do cool crap, and even if the plot was, well, it still would have happened in the end, well, we wanted to see him get to that end and Marion as well, so we were happy to be part of the journey, even if the ending wouldn't have changed.
Yeah, because it's all about the characters, not necessarily the opening or the non-opening of the arc.
Yeah,
right.
I love Indy in general, so I don't care what movie you put on. I will sit there and I will be quiet and I will watch it.
Wow.
We'll be
Any
quiet.
of them.
Wait, you quiet? What?
That's
Does
what I
that
just
happen?
said.
Really?
All right, so the next one. Are you guys ready for this? What's your
Yes.
favorite Harrison Ford movie?
Oh, that's harder.
Oh.
Star Wars.
Regarding Henry. I'm
Well,
kidding.
Hey, don't forget about
Well-
Age of Adeline.
I still haven't seen that, so I can't judge.
Air Force One was awesome, but it's just got to be the Indy franchise for me.
see, my favorite movie with him in it is Empire Strikes Back, but it's not really a Harrison Ford movie. It's an everybody movie. There's a lot of people that could call it their movie. So I don't know. That's a tough question.
And see, I like the fugitive.
Witness. No.
For a dramatic role, he did such a good job in The Fugitive, and the chemistry between Tommy Lee Jones and Harrison Ford in that is really, really well done. And it's not an action-adventure movie in the way that some of these others are. There's a lot more of a thriller and a suspense to that one, but I liked the way it was acted. And you still got some of those things that we saw in the other movies that we loved. So as an outlier, I would toss The Fugitive out there.
But that's definitely a Harrison Ford movie.
Yes,
which is
that is
kind of the,
very
I
focused on that.
enjoyed him in Patriot Games.
yeah.
I liked him as a replacement Jack Ryan. I know some people were kind of jarred by that transition, and I loved Alec in Hunt for Red October. Again, another Sean Connery flick, but I really enjoyed Harrison Ford as Jack Ryan. So I'd have to say probably Patriot Games.
Okay, I'm going to have to go with Blade Runner, I think.
Oh, good call.
Yeah, I think Blade Runner. Again, he does such a great job of pulling it all together with Rutger Hauer there absolutely chewing the scenery and taking up so much of the space. He's still present, and that impresses me. So, yeah, I think I'm going to go with Blade Runner.
That's funny, man. I just introduced my two youngest boys to Lady Hawk.
Oh,
right before my second, my middle boy, right before he shipped off to Fort Campbell, and because he's a huge Blade Runner fan, he loves Blade Runner. He loves Blade Runner 2099, huge Blade Runner franchise fan, and he's like, oh, "It's him! It's him!" I was like, "Yeah, I told you were gonna like this."
Yeah,
it just didn't seem to matter what movie Rutger Hauer was in.
Oh yeah,
he was a scenery chewer.
I really liked his role in Ender's Game because I liked him as the more seasoned adult who didn't hate the franchise he was in. Because
Ben Kingsley was so good in that though, because I was just so good.
Yeah, so I don't know. I like that one for me. Stabby, did you answer?
I didn't, but that's okay.
No, it's not. That's why I'm asking you.
We all know that I love Indy. I think if anybody here knows how much I love Indy, it would be Pittman.
Yep.
Because I sent him on a crusade of his own to get me an autograph.
Well, this sounds like a story we have to hear.
Well, during one of the previous recordings, I was coming up on a convention appearance, and at the end, she couldn't wait to immediately once the recording's on, she's like, "Pittman, you're gonna meet John Rhys Davies, right? I need an autograph." And I got her one of the entire Indie cast from Last Crusade, and Stella signed it for her.
So you're
oh, that's what you were flashing at us earlier.
Oh,
and I immediately shipped it out the following Monday.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Well done.
I love Indy. I love him in Star Wars, but I have to be honest, those were not the first two movies that I ever saw him in. I have to hold
it first in American Graffiti.
He was in American Graffiti as Bob, and that's the first time I saw Harrison Ford was as Bob Falafa or whatever his last name was in American Graffiti.
That role almost got him not to be in Star Wars.
Yeah.
Because Lucas didn't want to cast anybody he had worked with in THX or in American Graffiti.
All right, and so Stabby, what's the coffee pot making you today?
Today it made me half blueberry crumble, half bourbon flavored coffee brand coffee.
And how's that? You liking it?
Oh my God, it's so good. It has a chocolate aftertaste. I don't know where that comes from in the two flavors, but it's so good. It was delicious. But that's
she gave me, Stabby used her FBI skills and she got me probably not that hard, but she got me the recipe for Dunkin' Donuts iced coffee, the way they make it, so I can make it at home because it's pretty low-cal. And so I've been drinking that. But I did order some of the cold brew from Coffee Brand just to see how that compares. Because shelf life wise, if you can get it as grounds and then make it yourself versus buying the pre-made fluids, you generally get longer shelf life out of it. So
I do whole beans.
Yeah, I need to get a grinder before I can do that. But since I know not everyone else here is a coffee fanatic, so what do you guys tend to drink when you're watching a movie?
Coke. Yeah. Straight up Coke.
Okay. Jana?
Need you even ask? It is Diet Dr. Pepper at all times and in all things. And
Diet Dr. Pepper.
It is. My Diet Dr. Pepper is, they just did a run of a coconut flavored Diet Dr. Pepper, which is fantastic. You mix that with a little bit of lime and you get a dirty Diet Dr. Pepper. And that is my current favorite. It's a limited edition thing. And we were talking to the soda people in the store as one does. And they're like, these are the last pallets we have unless they decide to do another run and make it not a limited edition thing. So naturally, my husband bought 8 cases on the spot, and that's what we have to get us through until either they go away with it or until they decide to make it a regular thing. But it is very, very yummy. And Utah and Idaho have consumed 60% of their initial run. So that tells you something about Utah and Idaho.
Have you tried the pineapple Diet Dr. Pepper and Diet Dr. Pepper?
No, that is disgusting. Don't do that. Gross.
There's been a run of
a flavor profile.
There's been a run of a couple. There's been a run of a couple of funny memes about the various flavors of Pepsi and Dr. Pepper. So, like the mayonnaise flavored one, I tagged her on all of them. And, she asked if I needed an exorcist.
Yeah, it was bad. It was either an exorcist or a punch in the face, one of the two, because you don't okra in my Diet Dr. Pepper. Are you kidding me?
Okra Cola. Anybody remember that?
And the pineapple thing is Pepsi, and it's specific to it's one of the pizza companies that's doing the Pepsi thing.
Oh, okay.
Pineapple Pepsi. It is not a Dr. Pepper thing.
It's just Dr. Pepper's a Pepsi product, so that's probably why
it's
stuck
not.
In the
It's its very own thing, and it is number 2 behind Coke. Coke, Diet Dr. Coke, Dr. Pepper, Pepsi. these things are important. Don't get me started on soda wars. We can talk about that later.
Okay,
Move
unless you're in India, because in India it's Pepsi. Big
Fanta,
Pepsi
Fanta,
has its
Fanta.
claws into
Yes, so
into
India
Indian
But
restaurants.
Fanta is huge in India. In fact, it's an ongoing argument between Fluffy, Gabriel Iglesias, the comedian, and Indians as to who loves Fanta more, Mexicans or Indians. Because he
That's a
comes
good
out on
question.
stage in India and they're like Fanta, 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 Fanta. It was
Well,
amazing.
where I am, I'm in South India, and I don't see the Fanta thing. So
okay.
probably a North India thing.
Could be. Very well.
And they like Mirinda, I think, is like it's like a knockoff Fanta. It's an orange drink. So they like that. But if you go into a restaurant, the restaurants all serve Pepsi, and the only one that does not, that serves Coke, is McDonald's.
Yeah.
McDonald's serves Coke.
contracts.
So,
Yep. Anyway.
Nothing beats an RC
there's
Cola and a
tangent for
moon
you.
pie, though. I'm just saying.
Well, yeah.
I mean, you're right.
When I was working in radio, WDXR in Paducah, Kentucky, we had cut a deal with the Royal Crown Cola Company, the RC Cola Company, and I actually drove their stagecoach in a parade. It was the Royal Crown Line stagecoach, and it had 6 horses on it. And I was the only one that had any experience with horses. And so I had a wool gray trench coat and a hat very similar to this one and my bullwhip. And we rode that parade, man. It was awesome.
That's great.
I do not knock Royal Crown Cola because they had a cool
no.
stagecoach.
So this is an important question for everybody. Everybody knows that Taco Bell is the only restaurant that survived the restaurant wars. But what carbonated beverage survived the wars? This is an important question, and they did not answer that for us.
Wait, what was
Dr. Pepper. I'll tell you why. If you actually look into it, Dr. Pepper, during all of the stuff that was going down all the way back to freaking World War II, Dr. Pepper had itself deemed as a food product.
Yep.
So that way it would be deemed as a necessity.
Yeah, and so they were able to get sugar rations.
That's nice.
LaVoice, I was making a joke about Demolition Man. Taco Bell's the only restaurant to survive the restaurant wars.
I remember that now. Okay, yeah.
It's okay.
Every restaurant
Right.
is Taco Bell. I forgot all about that.
Pittman,
Dr. Pepper is a food, not a drink.
What do you drink when you're watching a movie, Pittman?
At the theaters, I'm with the Coke crowd, munching that, or drinking that when I'm munching my popcorn. At home, usually Coke too, because I'll have my popcorn and Coke there. Sometimes I'll have a good whiskey, depending on the movie.
So popcorn, is it buttered or kettle?
I do kettle. I'm old school. I cook it on the stove.
No, I was actually cooking it in a kettle. I meant kettle corn flavor popcorn or buttery popcorn. The kettle corn has a slightly sweeter taste.
Yeah, kettle corn. I like the sweeter.
Great. What about you, LaVoice? What are you drinking when you're watching the movies?
If I'm gonna do like a movie event, I'm gonna get my Mountain Dew Zero Baja Blast going. And the popcorns, let's be honest, it's going to be microwaved. But I do love cooking popcorn on the stovetop using coconut oil, which is what they used to use in the movie theaters, which gave it a unique flavor and it lasted longer. It didn't go stale as quick. That was kind of cool. I had a sister who used to work in the theater. She told me all the secrets.
Nice. What about you, Stabby? When you're watching a movie, what's on the cup?
Oh man, that depends. Because I usually have about 3 cups surrounding me at any given time. As everybody probably noticed, I kind of bob my head to my own music in my head. So this one here, it has cherry Pepsi in it. And then I have my watermelon wine. And then I don't know where my Stanley went, but that has ice water in it. And then my other Starbucks cup has iced coffee in it. Because I never know what I want to drink, so I always have multiple
But you're properly
options.
hydrated.
How many hours a day do
That's fantastic. Yeah.
One's for hydration, one's for caffeination, one's for comfort.
There you go.
And then there's my cherry Pepsi. It's just there for flavor.
That's also comfort.
I always do the Diet Coke is the drink or water, depending on how hot I am at that time. And if I'm doing food with it, making an actual event, it's kettle corn. Then if I can't get that, the buttered popcorn. And if I'm getting the candy, like you used to do when you actually went to the movie theater before it cost you like a month's wage just to go see it in the theater, it was always the Mike and Ike's as far as the candy goes.
Oh, for me it was Milk Duds. It was the only place back in the day you could get Milk Duds.
Junior
Milk
Mints.
Duds was always an Easter thing for us. I don't know why. It was just an Easter candy. So it was Mike and Ike's year round for me.
Reese's Pieces.
Mike and Ike's are good.
All of you guys would absolutely love watching movies at my house. I've just come to learn. I am an indecisive snacker. So I have currently in my cupboard, I have kettle corn popcorn, movie theater butter popcorn. I have Jiffy Pop that you do on the stove. I also have at least 5 different flavors of Girl Scout cookies. I have Reese's Pieces, 2 different flavor Oreos, Sour Patch Kids, sour straws, and I have Milk Duds. I have M&Ms.
I'm a type 2 diabetic. I would die.
And then I buy the really big snack box of all the Flamin' Hot chips. So whether you want Flamin' Hot Funyuns, Ruffles, Doritos, Cheetos, they're all
the purple bag of the spicy Doritos, that comes in the purple bag, you would like those if you can get them.
I also found the mustard Doritos are so good.
Wait, that's a thing? I thought that was just a joke.
I would not have thought that.
They are so good. They're
Extended deployment is the joke flavor of the chips, JR.
Okay.
Oh, I also have Canadian chips. I just remembered I ordered a box of Canadian chips. So I have like all dressed Ruffles and loaded baked potato. And
if there's not maple syrup, it's not really Canadian.
Does anybody else like the TGI Friday potato skin chips? Like the
Yes, those are good.
Cheddar bacon.
Oh, I haven't heard those.
I
had those. Those sound good.
They're really good if you dip them in French onion dip, which is also in my fridge.
So Jana and Melissa, we kind of evolved to talking about the food to go with the beverage, and you didn't answer that. So what do you two eat when you're watching a movie?
Oh, I'm boring. I just plain buttered popcorn.
Okay. Classic.
Although if we are at the theater, I get Junior Mints because I've been doing that for decades now, and it's like that's in my head associated with going to the movies. If I'm allowed to get candy, and that's how old that tradition is, because it's back when I was not in control of the candy purchase because I was a kid. So, and my parents had the purse strings.
Movie theater experience, is that affordable where you're at in India?
Well, they're affordable like everything, but English movies, very uncommon. Even down south here in Kerala, the movie industry is thriving. It's not even Bollywood; it's the Malayalam film industry, and Indians love movies, and they go frequently. So the only movie theater we could go to that has English language films was showing Inside Out 2, Despicable Me 4, and A Quiet Place. So
slim pickings.
Yeah, very slim pickings. I think they were advertising Deadpool and Wolverine, whatever that's actually called, coming soon. That was,
isn't it?
Yeah. Is it?
I think that's the name.
I think that sounds right in my head, so I assume that's the name. Anyway, they were advertising that as coming soon. So, but movies in general are very big, very big. It's just I don't understand a word. So,
okay. What about you, Jana? What are you eating when you're watching a movie?
We're buttered popcorn people too, but like Jay, we do it on the stove. So it's either a whirly pop or a covered thing, and we make it ourselves, and then we eat red vines.
Red vines. Oh, Twizzlers. Okay.
No.
No,
Red
No.
Red
Vines.
Vines and Twizzlers are two very, very different products.
See,
We're all
Red
very
Vines are
excited.
candy. Twizzlers are old candles that have been reshaped into a candy.
Red Vines were just
Okay.
generic Twizzlers, like
No.
knockoff.
No.
So I really feel spoiled listening to all of you guys tell me what you guys eat at the theaters. Like I told you what I have in my house, but we go to AMC theaters out here and they have a bar.
Oh yeah, we got those here too. We got Malco theaters here in Memphis, and they've all gone to full service bar and grill type places. So if I was still drinking, I could go watch a movie and sit down with a nice bourbon or whatever. Which is
No,
weird.
they do. AMC does drinks that are based on the movies. So like when the Batman came out, they had the Black Cat and the Bat, which were two different drinks, which I fell in love with the cat. And of course, Nick loved the Bat because it was just bourbon and Coke.
Oh,
They also... Go ahead.
I was gonna say the last movie I actually saw in theater was 2018 Wreck-It Ralph, and before that it was Last of the Mohicans in the 90s.
Oh,
Wow.
Wow,
Those are
it's
both
been a
great
while.
films, but
yeah, those
Lord,
are
you're
good.
old.
So for
I'm
snacks
older than
at
you.
our theater, though, like Nick gets the Bavarian pretzel, which is bigger than my head.
What makes a pretzel
And-
Bavarian?
It's bigger than your
It's
head.
this big.
It's just a
It's
soft
this big.
pretzel.
It's
Yeah,
soft-
it's a ginormous soft pretzel.
Okay.
Giant. And I get chicken wings and mozzarella sticks, and my kid gets like a hot dog, and then he goes above and beyond with them putting peppers and onions on it. Like I feel really spoiled now that everybody's like, I get popcorn, I get this, and I'm like, yeah, I eat chicken
that's the
wings
thing
in the
now,
movie.
We have some of that available, but
Yeah.
it's the price thing for me. I would rather
Mhm.
pay for a much better chair and not bother with the snacks. But that's also why my husband bought a big
I'm gonna say,
television that he mounted on the wall, and then I can
you-
have
yeah.
any snack I want and the most comfortable seat in the house, and you can pause anytime that you want to run to the restroom. So
I gotta
So-
say, movie theater chairs have improved so much.
Oh yeah.
Since I was a
Oh
kid.
yeah.
You remember those chairs? You had to fold it down, and you were lucky it
Uh-huh.
didn't fold up and pinch you
Kill
before
you.
you got your
You-
butt in it.
Uh huh.
You know, and now you sit down and you hit a button, and the chair goes.
We have
Your feet go up, and you're like, dude.
oh yeah,
the theater.
There's a
the only
little
ones-
table for your snacks and your drinks too.
Yes.
The only
Yeah.
theaters we have that serve food are like the ones that are playing the second chance movies that have already out on DVD, but you can still go see it in the theater.
Uh-huh.
I forget the name of it, but the Cinema Cafe. There we go. That's the one that's in our area. But it's like ballpark type food. It's not anything fancy.
Mhm.
And if you don't have a strong stomach, the grease will kill you.
Well,
So
see,
it's
I'm spoiled there.
You've lived on
'cause
MREs long enough. You're fine.
I mean, probably. So I realized that we might have to rename the show Movie Review, but also Food Review, because we just
What happens when you get a bunch of
minutes.
foodies? Get a bunch of foodies in on a panel. This is what happens, dude.
I am a recovering fatty. I dream about the food I can't eat anymore. So
Mm,
So
Same.
I'm spoiled when it comes to my ballpark too,
mhm.
because
Go
I
on.
live in San Diego, and so we have the Padres. And Nick takes me for my birthday every year to go see a Padres game, and they always win on my birthday. So why not, right?
Good.
And it's not just hot dogs and nachos.
Or maybe it's
They
just
have-
you being there. You could advertise to the team, hey, take me on the road with you and you'll win every game.
They have tacos, like fancy tacos, but then they also like we got Philly cheesesteaks last year for my birthday. I couldn't
Yum.
tell you where the hot dog stand is. They have really nice brats, like bacon wrap brats. But I can't.
Love
I
brats.
couldn't even tell you where to find a
Those
hot
are
dog
good.
there.
Yeah.
all right. And with that, we're gonna pause for a moment while we shamelessly shill for the man, and then we'll jump and actually talk about the movie. If you guys want. I mean, we could go back to
Yeah.
food.
Well,
I'll rename the episode if you want to.
I'm good either way.
I actually do have some
I mean,
things I want to say about it. So let's.
We are here for the movie, so
All right.
Yeah.
Well, then we're gonna air that beautiful bean.
Southside thief Kai Fletcher thought he could go straight until he couldn't. And when his last job goes wrong, he finds himself stowed away in a starship belonging to an alien crime syndicate. Forced into servitude to pay for his passage off-world, Kai makes a deal. He helps them rob the most powerful alien empire in known space, and he gets to go home. Easy peasy. Until it isn't. Planning the heist, Kai discovers the Empire has stolen ancient alien technology that threatens all other sentient species. He's never been a good guy, but even he has limits. Hunted by both the Empire and the Syndicate, he manages to get on the wrong side of everyone in the galaxy who wants the discovery for themselves. Kai just wanted to get back to Chicago, but instead, he's become the galaxy's most wanted sci-fi thrill ride from Michael LaVoice and Athon Books. Available at Amazon.com and Audible.
All right, man.
Oh my God, LaVoice, you're so famous.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks. It's actually 4 books now.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
All right. Absolutely.
I've
All right.
never
So now,
been the man that you shamelessly shilled for. This was awesome. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
so all right. So first, before we start talking about the movie, does anybody remember the Indiana Jones video game?
Mm-hmm.
I remember you got
Yeah.
to steal a submarine. That's the only part I remember.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
I remember Pitfall on the Atari 2600. It was kind of like
I remember that too. Grandma had one of those.
It did have the whole whipping crossing alligators thing going for it.
Yes, it did.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I wasn't sure if my memory was just like making stuff up or if it was really a thing.
No, I
don't
remember
remember.
I actually played the Indiana Jones video game. So, actually, there were a couple. The one I remember was more of a point-and-click adventure, and had puzzles and things. And I remember it because it had some made-up substance called ophiuchum, which is like from the zodiac, the missing sign Ophiuchus, and I'm not saying that right, but anyway, that's the detail I remember from this game back
Almost
in
sounds dirty.
the 80s. Yeah, it does kind of, doesn't it? But that's the detail I remember from the game. And
All right. I actually found a big list of all of the games. There's a lot more than I thought.
Oh yeah.
So there was Raiders of the Lost Ark on the Atari.
Mm-hmm.
What's that?
Temple of Doom was there, Lost Kingdom, Revenge of the... So I don't remember which one let you steal a submarine, but there's a whole bunch more of them than I thought.
Yeah.
I sent you a couple
I remember
pictures.
on the computer though, so I'll list that link if you guys want to check that out, dear listeners.
Sure. Yeah.
So, first off, Stabby, can you pull up a summary of the movie so we can set the scene for people who are crazy and haven't seen this movie yet?
Spoiler
So
alert.
can we put out a spoiler thing that this movie is now old enough? We're going to talk about things that happened in the plot. And if you haven't seen it, go and watch it and then come back, because we're not about to, not tell you things that happen.
Mhm.
Pause here, go watch Goodness, and then come back.
And come back.
Yeah.
It's all right. We'll wait.
Yeah, it's,
In 1938, after his father goes missing while pursuing the Holy Grail, Indiana Jones finds himself up against the Nazis again to stop them from obtaining its powers.
Ooh.
so all right. Now we got that out.
Anybody
of the way.
remember the tagline that was on the movie posters? Anybody? Anybody?
Mm-mm.
The man with the hat is back, and this time he brought his dad.
Dad.
Have the adventure of your life keeping up with the Joneses was the movie poster.
That's
I
a
found.
different movie poster.
Yes,
That's not
uh-huh.
official. I don't know where you found that crap, but that's not movie posters. When I saw it,
Oh.
just saying, some kind of counterfeit garbage you found, the Temu version of the poster. I don't know.
Oh, harsh.
It was the Wish version of the indie posters, is what you're telling me.
Exactly.
So that was one of my actual complaints about this movie. Was in 38 when this was supposedly happening. Like, yeah, the Nazis existed, but the extent of their evil wasn't as well known. So this visceral, I hate the Nazis because they're bad guys. Like that feels like, a little bit of postmodernism thrown in there. Like, retrospect, we knew, but would they have known back then?
Indy, well, I think they kind of had to, because we know that Nazis are horrible and evil, and I think that I think they could not have gotten away with saying, "Oh well, we don't know that they're bad. We don't really know that they're evil." I think for modern audiences, they really had to lean into the "this is terrible" thing. So. What disturbed me, not really disturbed, but what got me was the scene when they're actually in Berlin and all the Nazis are parading around and everything like that. That seemed to me to be more something that would have happened a few years later.
Yeah.
So that scene in particular was
the big
kind of what you're talking about
scene?
for me. The big book burning scene, yeah.
Right.
So not that not that it's not factual, but just it seemed like that moment was really something that might have been later on than 1938. But
Hitler and getting the signature thing, that was all focused on that moment and the humor that came out of it. I think more than the historical anything.
Yeah. So I think they were going for emotional impact, and I'm fine with that actually, because I think it works. But again, I'm a modern audience, and I think Nazis are horrible and evil. So I want to see them depicted as horrible and evil.
And I'm a history nut who was like, that's not actually how that happened. But the scene where they're burning the books and Blondie's crying as her team is burning the books, that was kind of moving. You almost felt sorry for her for just a second.
Yeah. Just a second, because you kind of saw what, as an academic herself, you kind of got a glimpse of what she was sacrificing for power. And it had to be hard on her to watch that happening, even though she got power mad at the end and died for it. Yeah, I think that was a good characterization moment for her. And yeah, you almost did feel a little sympathy for what she had gone through at that point.
And that was after they had built it up where she has their prisoners and she's talking to them. And she's like, that was a beautiful night, hinting at their time after hours, shall we say. And then both father and son were like, thank you. And then it's like,
ouch.
Also, she wasn't a Nazi. And they made that distinction there, that she was part of the team and there was funding coming from the Reich, but she and the guy whose name has just now lost me, the other bad guy,
the American.
Yes, the American. They weren't Nazis.
Donovan,
they were in it for the Grail. They were in it for a lot of other things. And so what she was witnessing wasn't something she believed in. They were only associated with the Nazis because of cash flow and power and getting them where they needed and wanted to be.
Well, and she was Austrian.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
That's one thing the movie does show, is like the not necessarily neutrality, but Nazi Germans were going about the world at large pretty much without the hatred that is historically associated with them. The World War hadn't really kicked off totally yet. It was just kind of they were like going about their business, getting on the Zeppelin. They're doing these things, and you have like the doctor and Donovan and everybody who are associated with them, but there's not that strong vitriol associated except with the Jones boys, because they know what's at the core. They know that book burning scene in the heart of Germany at the time.
But they wouldn't have known that was happening because they hadn't gone there yet. He's already talking about, I hate the Nazis. And it just feels like, well, why? There's not a lot of there based on the timeline. Again,
I think Indy probably knew, because he's out relic hunting and trying to grab all these historical artifacts.
Plus by this point, he's already dealt with them with the Ark.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So he's already had dealings with Nazis, and he knows what they're about.
Yeah.
But the Nazi, you mentioned the Zeppelin. There was one of my favorite scenes in the movie happened on the Zeppelin.
It's also one of my least favorite scenes.
So he impersonates one of the wait staff to try to hide from the Nazis checking for papers, and he throws the guy out the window, and he's wearing the thing, and he said he didn't have his papers, and then everyone's rushing to show their papers.
Here's what happens: he beats the crap out of the dude, throws him out the window, turns around to a bunch of Germans, and says in English, "No ticket." and everybody freaks out and shows their tickets. A man of learning should have been able to say "kein Verkaarta,"
which he did. If you notice, he does speak German before that. He says that, and then he says tickets before the.
And didn't say the German word for ticket then either.
Yeah, well, that's just it. Okay, that's true.
Well, his cover's blown at that point.
But it's like, we know that he can, so why didn't he? It's just
because
it was the American
sure
audience.
The joke landed, right? It's the joke landing
the American
for the
audience.
English-speaking American audience.
Yeah.
Because if he had said it and we didn't understand what it was, or if they had to put up the subtitles, people wouldn't have laughed. It was the funny. Humor doesn't translate that way most of the time. Now, it would have done for people who spoke German, but the rest of us would have gone, wait, it's what? Okay, read the screen. Oh, now it's funny. And they can't give up that beat in humor.
And there is the danger that I find when you have to go to subtitles. If you're watching that at a theater, you can't pause to read it.
No.
So not everybody's a fast reader.
Right.
Well, since we're kicking around stuff that we liked or didn't like, I'll go ahead and get the other one out of the way.
Okay.
This is the only other thing I really didn't like about this movie, and that was the fact that they turned Brody and Sulla into caricatures of themselves.
Yeah.
They basically became cartoons, and I didn't like that. Sulla was a respected archaeologist from Egypt. He was a smart guy, a family guy. And they still made him a family guy in this, but he was really goofy. And then turning Brody into this wandering idiot who got lost in his own museum.
Right.
I was just like, no, that's not right. They shouldn't have done that. I didn't like. I know they did it for comedic effect and all, but I didn't like what they did to those two characters. Sulla and Brody were two of my favorite supporting characters in this whole series. I just love them.
It would have been great if they just kept with his Indy's bluff about the man knows a dozen languages. He can blend into all the customs. I'm like, yeah, show him doing that. That would be great.
I was expecting that. The first time I saw it, I was like, oh, this is going to be dope. We're going to see Brody out there blending and speaking a bunch of different languages and just hiding out. No, does anyone speak English? I say. Really?
The other problem I had, and I know why they did it, but like having seen vehicles get shot at, they don't blow up that way.
No.
It even disproves all of that with Mythbusters. I get why they did it, but like
because boom is good.
Because boom and flames are good.
Okay.
In carpet catching fire like it did in the castle. That's another one.
In all fairness, when it comes to movie magic, we have to let there be just a few things that they got to use, because let's be honest, how many people would actually die from getting stabbed in the abdomen? Not that fast.
Not right away.
It takes at least 3 to 5 days to die without medical attention, stabbed in the abdomen. But they die instantly every time. That's movie magic. We have to give way for movie magic. Otherwise,
LaVoice,
you said watching a movie.
You said something about one of the flame scenes that you mentioned.
Oh, when they're tied into the chairs right after Elsa.
Oh, in the castle.
The
castle's on fire.
Speech, and they leave, and the Nazi guy punches him and smacks his head back into his dad. Connery drops the lighter, and he's trying to blow it out, and instead of just catching a few fires on fire, it goes
like
aerosol. Take a can of Lysol or something and the lighter.
It's like, oops, it fell into the can of gasoline they spilled earlier.
Yes.
Yep.
I was just like, really? I don't care how old and dusty that carpet is. That's not happening.
No.
The whole room burns. I was like, what's on fire here? It's a
when the stone walls start burning.
Well, the tapestries.
Yeah.
The tapestries that they were so proud of, because they were a castle. They had many fine tapestries. So
they were there to tour the tapestries.
I caught that right.
Yeah.
And if you're a Scottish lord, what was it? He said something.
Donald Duck, I think.
Donald Duck.
Yeah, Mickey Mouse. He said, "I'm Mickey Mouse."
Mickey Mouse, yeah.
And because the guy was onto his fake accent, which I thought was hilarious. But the other thing that really bugged me about this is the Nazis were so incompetent. They didn't accomplish what they accomplished by being like lemmings, stooges, whatever. Like, I think the movie would have been served better if they had been competent, and then he still won.
Yeah, Yeah,
That's too
agree.
high level. That's too high level.
Yeah, I think they couldn't have
shot the tail off the plane instead of.
If they're making Sulla and Brody characters of themselves, they have to make the Nazis caricatures as well.
Yeah, and nobody wants to see successful Nazis.
No.
It comes back to selling to the audience. What is it the audience is expecting to see? And
I don't mind successful Nazis, mostly because I know how the war ends. So the historian wants accuracy.
I kind of agree with you, but I think it would have been a different movie. It's like this is an action flick, and so we have to do shortcuts to sell it. We
not
have
just
to
an action flick, an 80s action flick.
An 80s action flick. That is totally
difference.
true.
Yeah, that's
totally true.
Speaking of successful Nazis, they did bring one back from the dead. Did anybody catch that?
Which one?
No.
Okay, so in the cast list on IMDb, which I looked at earlier today in preparation, there's a character who is listed simply as Gestapo, and the actor's name is Pat Roach. Was a very successful movie bad guy in the 80s. I don't know if you can see this, but if you look at his picture on my phone.
Hold on, let me see if I can put you slow.
That is the dude that gets into a fist fight with Indy.
In the first one.
In the first one. And
yes.
And they bring him back to the third film as Gestapo. I was looking through it and I was like, holy crap, he was in the third one. That's amazing.
Oh, good for him.
That was kind of cool.
Yeah, that is kind of cool.
I think my other two favorite characters as far as names go, because they have generic names, was Fedora and Panama Hat.
Yes, I saw those.
Even on IMDb, they're still
first
just
opening
that's the names of the characters.
Hat.
Yeah.
With River Phoenix as young
River Phoenix,
fantastic.
River Phoenix is so good.
That whole opening was just beautiful.
Yeah,
loved it.
And so unexpected too. I mean, I remember seeing it and thinking, this is not what I thought was going to happen at the beginning, because in Indiana Jones film, they always have the opening, heist, the adventure, the quick little thing.
They pioneered that technique.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, and so this is not the cold open that I was expecting, and it was fantastic. It was so good, and
the transition to modern indie from
exactly a transition to exactly what you were expecting, which was bookend with that cross.
Right.
And it was so well done. I love that to this day. I love it.
You can almost go home at that point. Oh, this was great. Let's go.
This is great. I had a great time. Okay.
And the old Boy Scout uniforms were kind of sweet. You see him wearing the original style of
awesome. Yeah.
Very doughboy-esque. I dug it.
With the old drill sergeant hats. And Boy Scouts out doing Boy Scouty things like horseback trail riding,
falling off the horse,
as one does.
That was awesome. That was good.
And I liked that they showed how he got the scar. That he showed how he got the whip in the hat that became trademarked.
The fear of snakes. The fear of snakes.
Fear of snakes.
Yeah.
And the dad's fear of rats. Like that was the way they did that.
Yes, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
But one of the interesting things is we keep talking about how that there's these details wrong and this, that, and the other, but some of that comes down to the heart of what kind of story this is, because it's a reconciliation story. It's all about him reconciling with his father and reconciling with his father's passion, with what they lost because of chasing the Grail and what they found when they finally find it. And because of that, a lot of the other stuff, it really does fall away as far as what you're watching it for. Because when you go in there, you got to see the Jones boys together, and you've got to see this reconciliation of, you were never there. You weren't there when mom died. You weren't attached here. And you ran off and did all these things. And so the story we want there is a family story. And it just happens to be against this amazing action adventure background.
Yeah.
But if you take out that family dynamic, it wouldn't be half the story it is. That's the story we're there for, which is why a lot of the other stuff when I watch falls away, because what I'm most invested in is, how are they going to reconcile? How are they going to get through this? What is that dynamic between father and son? And it's a dynamic we hadn't seen before with Indiana Jones, because we've seen him with the girls. We've seen him with the little kid. We've seen him bold and confident and all of those things. And at the moment that his father slaps him in the face and says, "That's for blasphemy," it was just like, yay, because nobody else could have got away with that. But there was that father-son moment that put doubt into Indiana Jones and made him real.
They built up to that too. There was the whole motorcycle chase. Where every time something cool happens, and then he looks back and he's like, "Hey," he's really proud of himself, and his dad is just like,
whatever. Yeah,
that look.
And he's like,
that look.
Yep.
Oh,
and then,
one
and
of
then
the
at the very
things-
end,
One of the things that, go ahead.
So I was just going to say, they put that nice bow on it at the end where the whole film, he's Junior. And then at the very end, when Indy's succumbing to the exact same temptation that gets Elsa killed, he goes, Indiana, let it go. And it was like, yeah, you know, and everybody, even the guys melted at that point. I don't care who you were. You didn't, you're lying. You melted at that point.
And then one of the
no one else could have saved him. No one could have saved him at that point except his father reaching out in exactly that way. Go ahead, JR. You've been trying to get a word in edgewise.
No, you're fine. One of the things they got right, though, was they had the tank in the tank scene. That was actually a 1917 Vickers main battle tank. I think it was the Mark 6 or 7. That actually was a tank that would have been in surplus all over the world because they started mass producing those right at the end of World War I. So the fact that they used that and not something, you know, that would have been more iconic that people might have recognized, because World War II tanks are what people picture when they think. The fact that they actually used a World War I tank, I thought was amazing. They are actually that roomy inside. I've been inside one of those tanks. The only thing that they got wrong was it never ran out of gas. Those things are gas.
Oh, yeah.
But
it did as it went off the cliff.
Yep.
Yeah. and you notice that all the details they got wrong are ones that they sacrificed for the story. You know, the tank thing, I think that was important that they get the tank look right. They scoured the countryside looking for Nazi uniforms to make. It wasn't just replicas. It was like they were going through and looking at details of what the Nazi uniforms looked like, and they got that down to the threads. I mean, they cared about the details where it really mattered. So
did they get Hugo Boss to remake new ones for them?
No. Pittman had something he wanted to say. He's been trying to get it out for a minute. So
sorry.
I was going to say, going back to the tank thing, you know, they were building the relationship with Indy and his dad. When he thinks he's dead, that's the first time, you know, Sean Connery, his dad is just like actually looking where he thinks his son is. In the beginning of the film, his back's to him. He's like, wait a minute.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, once he thinks he's actually lost him, that's when he like sits up and pays attention. And, you know, that kind of whole building thing, Andy's been like trying to show off for his dad, do cool stuff for his dad. But he's always one step ahead doing his own thing, like when he does the umbrellas on the beach with the flock of seagulls.
I love that.
You know, he's just doing his old swagger thing that where Indy gets it. But when Indy actually pulls off that whole stunt with the tank and they think he's dead, he's just like, just like devastated in that moment. And then after that, he's actually looking to him, and, you know, like Michael was saying, you know, Indiana, he finally calls him by the name he picks. It's just kind of like that turning point. That whole relationship is just kind of summed up in like the paying attention to one another type thing, the seeking of attention, and the finally like realizing, oh crap, he's not there. What you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was definitely that scene, and then the comedic relief to let you in, down at the end where he's crawling up beside them and they don't see him and he's looking over and shrugging like, I don't know what they're looking at, but you know, he's looking over.
Okay, I'm looking.
And got back to Stabby's. That's the picture that I got her.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the other one was
shot.
They somehow went away. Like in the beginning, you see he got stabbed in the stomach when he was getting off that tank by the Nazi. And suddenly later he's healed again. Like they just never addressed that.
Well,
like Stabby said, it can take 2 or 3 days.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, but the blood disappears.
Keep going, and you'll get the grill.
Yeah, he just changed shirts is all.
It got dirt in it, and it blocked the blood.
Yeah,
rubbed some dirt in it.
There you go. Rub some dirt
Stuck his fist in it, a la Princess Bride.
I bet he used duct tape. That's what it was.
Oh.
100 mile
But
an hour.
along
type
those
of-
lines, from what Pittman was saying, it's interesting. And in the end, we've seen Indiana Jones as a treasure hunter, as a somebody who goes and finds these things and takes to museums and whatever. When he finally really goes for the Grail, that's not the reason he does it. He does it because he wants to save his dad. And you know, there's points in the movie where he's like, oh yeah, finding the Grail would be cool, and yeah, it used to be my dad's thing, but you can see he kind of gets into the whole mystique of the whole thing. But in that moment, he doesn't chase the Grail for the Grail. He chases it because he's got to save his father. And that goes from that moment that you talk about where Indiana, they thought he was dead, and now he's looking and going, if I don't do this, my father dies. That's the very most important thing. So I love the way they played with it.
Do you think, Jana, that at that point, when he's using the diary and going through the traps and everything, that he's going through this and his father's words come back to him from earlier in the film where he says, it's not archaeology. It's a battle of good versus evil. And what is the biggest evil that he could think of at that point was probably losing his dad.
Yeah.
So those words probably, in my head canon, that happens.
All right. One of the things that we haven't talked about, but the sets that they use. So like they use the Temple of the Sun. That's where he goes to get the Grail, was actually filmed at Al-Qanaziyah. And it's known as the Treasury. I've actually seen pictures of that because I studied ancient history as one of my classes in college. So I'm like, I know what that building is. So it was really cool to see them using actual like historic buildings and filming kind of those scenes on site. Obviously, what was inside is not what's really there, but I mean, it'd be cool if it was. So,
well, it really threw me because that shot of them going into, to find the Grail of Petra, that was the first time I'd ever seen it. And so when I saw it again later as a real place, it blew my mind that they had used this real thing, and I was very confused. But yeah, for some reason that was the first time I'd seen it. So
interesting.
Yeah, don't know how I managed to do that. I was 17 when the film came out, so I don't know where I'd been all that time, but was not into history at the time. So
that's just always been my thing. So I noticed those details. Was there anything else that stood out for people? Like
for sets or for just in general?
In general, like that was actually filmed in Petra, Jordan, by the way, the Treasury. Al-Qanaziyah. Don't ask me to pronounce these people. I don't speak the language.
I loved the library. I loved that X marked the spot because they'd made such a big deal about, and X never marks the spot. All the things that he was talking about in his class, they did a great job of the callbacks in ways that were clever. Because it's like, oh yeah, X is also 10, and now we've found all of those things, and a lot of that, I love that they are things that you find in places like that, because numbers and symbology and that kind of stuff in architecture are really important. So it actually was not a huge stretch to say, oh, you could find Roman numerals in a room like this. You absolutely could. You see that kind of symbology in those kind of buildings. And so it was fun to see them pull on that and go, oh, not only are we going to do that, but we're going to have some fun with it while we're at it.
I like that they were saying, oh, that doesn't look like a library. That just looks like a whatever it was. And I'm like, that could totally be a library because they repurpose buildings all the time. And wouldn't that be cool if that was your local library that you could go to and your local library looked like that? Oh yeah. I mean, it's probably got boring books inside, but
for our younger listeners, they might not realize the other part, which is why there was the potential for confusion with the decimals, is because the Dewey Decimal System would have looked something like that too if it was just a book code. And so people have gotten spoiled. They went from Dewey Decimal to the card catalog to the internet. So if you didn't grow up having to learn to use the Dewey Decimal System, some of the nuance of that might be lost on you.
That's true. Yeah.
So,
and the old guy stamping the books.
Oh, that scene was hilarious.
Yeah, that was great.
So he's stamping the books, and every time he stamped the books, it just coincidence. Indy's taking this metal, chain holder that would hold the fuzzy rope to block you from exhibits, and he's slamming it. So the guy's thinking it's his book stamp every time he's clanging into the floor.
What is this? Yes.
One of the
Good.
cool things you mentioned, the callback to when he was teaching as a professor. In a world before people were always on the TV and always doing all the other things to distract themselves, the idea that someone like Professor Jones, who was a renowned archaeologist, like he would have groupies like that's not inaccurate.
Yeah.
I thought that scene sort of showing the period culture, I thought that was kind of cool, because now we kind of tend to venerate the wrong things and the wrong kinds of people. So, being excited to meet the guy who was smart and invented the thing, I thought that was kind of a nice callback to the old days.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I love the brass rubbing, that he was using that technique, because I've done that. I've gone around to grave sites as part of genealogy, looking at, families' graves, that kind of stuff, and doing the fold out papers and the brass rubbings, and that they were able to use that really effectively. It's not all of his techniques are by any stretch what a real archaeologist is going to do, but they do use enough things that you can believe that he is also a professor, because he pulls out things that you go, oh yeah, well that makes sense. I've done brass rubbings, I've matched things on gravestones, I've done this kinds of things. So it gave it just enough of a twist that I could buy, oh yeah, he's Professor Jones too. He also has that side.
Well, then the other part, you sort of see that when the scene where he comes into, I just saved this Cortez thing, the cross that he saves in the beginning, and his dad's like not interested, so he ends up having to turn it over to the bad guys. In that scene, when his dad was like, count to 5 or whatever, and so he starts doing it. No, do it in ancient Greek. And so it shows him just, even at, I guess he would have been 15 or 16 or so in that opening.
Yeah.
Professor Jones reminded me quite a bit of my own grandfather. My own grandfather, you have to understand that he went to seminary to be a Catholic priest. Lucky for me, he dropped out. But all my great uncles on his side of the family were priests. And he would write, he would send his son to Jerry, go to the store and get this list. Jerry would get to the store, having not checked the list. And he would call my grandfather, Dad, the list is in Latin. Yeah. He did stuff like that all the time. He was a retired postmaster. And when they finally had to put him in a home, because he was a security risk, he would try to leave as what they call elopement in the nursing home industry. And they put him in a room with a keypad on the door. I'm like, you idiots. He's a retired postmaster. The one thing he does know still is numbers. And so, yeah, he just went up to the door, went, and walked right out and left, and went to his old house on Cumberland Avenue in Louisville, Kentucky, and yelling at the person, what are you doing at my house? He was a super cool dude, even with dementia. He was super cool. And I just love him to death. But he reminded me so much of him when he was doing that count in Greek. It's like, oh my God, grandfather.
The cool thing was when they went into underground, when they go under the church and they're in the catacombs.
Yeah.
And you see that the Catholic church building was built on top of pagan sites, because that's historically accurate. They kind of, I'm going to take your holy thing from you and make it mine, was a very early Catholic church thing. And so when they're exploring, I thought that was kind of cool. And then he gets there and he does the rubbing of the paper over the shield. The only nitpick I had is he goes underwater. That would not have survived the water.
I know.
No,
That disturbed me. Yeah, that disturbed me.
Rats, I don't mind this. I don't like snakes, but I hate rats even more. So that scene was a little creepy. I liked it.
They brought in like 1,000 certified disease-free rats, and the fact that they had to certify it tells me something.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And there is a rat wrangler, I think, if I remember correctly, listed. It's not on IMDb, but there is a rat wrangler listed in the credits that scroll at the end of the movie.
The fun thing is, if you read some of the credits, the titles they give people, like if a movie has kids in it, there's literally a person whose job is listed as kid wrangler. So that's some of the fun trivia that's out there with some of the older movies where it was a lot more involved in making the films. So was there any other scenes that stood out for you guys?
Okay, not a scene. Line. You go ahead, because mine's longer.
Okay, I just have a favorite line, and I know everybody's going to get it. He chose Poorly.
I used to quote that all the time. That was all over the place when I was a kid.
It was a
Oh my
meme
gosh.
before memes
It was
existed.
a meme before it was a meme. Yes, it was amazing. Okay, so what I'm thinking is we have not talked about the magnificent Sean Connery, which was frankly the reason I went to see the movie, because I had the world's biggest crush on Sean Connery. And
Fair.
the fact that he was able and willing to be comic relief in a lot of the places, he was not playing to type. And that really impressed me with him, you know, that he's an action hero. He's James Bond, and he was willing to be funny. He was willing to.
He's Ramirez.
Oh. But he was, you know, and he was just, it was amazing, you know, the way that the chemistry works between him and Harrison Ford.
So good.
Totally believed them as father and son. And I was looking up trivia for this because there were some things I was curious about what went on behind the scenes. And the line where he says she talks in her sleep, he ad-libbed that. And it cracked the entire floor, just died. And Steven Spielberg says, "Okay, we're keeping that." So that was an ad lib. I just, you know, fantastic. So just had to say,
I did not know that was an ad lib. That's all.
Yeah,
And the fact
I didn't know that either.
that they both had a type, and he was like, you know, I'm still a man. And you're like, he was like, his son was like, you're old enough to be your grandfather. And Sean Connery just shrugs, like, I thought that was hilarious.
Well,
I mean, just like the next man. I was the next man.
Okay, so let's talk about the girl, because when I first saw it, I was all of about 12, and the twist of her being bad was not something that I at that age saw coming. And so it was like, we can do that thing because her room was tossed and all these things happened, and obviously she was the love interest, and now she's standing with the bad guys. How does that happen? So I found it at that age, and even rewatching it, it's done in such a way that it's very clever, because she is both the right type for both of them. Because the historian and that kind of stuff is very
physical type too.
Very, physical type and emotional mental type.
Right.
She is the historian. She's going to appeal to them. And then you end up with this betrayal. And it was just this beautiful, you know, she's the double agent. She's the beautiful spy. It fit in so nicely with a lot of the other storytelling of that time, of noir film, of all that kind of thing, of the beautiful but deadly, the femme fatale. So talk about her, because we haven't talked about
all of
her
us who watched that scene, even when we found out she was a Nazi, were like, but I could save her.
Yeah, he thought the same thing, man.
Enough, right?
Well, that was not a thing I thought.
I had not developed my allergy to blondes yet at that point in my life, and so Elsa, I was so sad that she was evil, and then I thought she was going to come around, and then okay, so she's redeemable, and then no, not so much. So and in the end, she got the end she deserved, but yeah, it was very shocking. Just like Jana said, when she turned out to be bad, I was like, no. But the fact that they both, you know, she played them both was just too funny, just too delicious.
Yeah, it was in the interaction in that whole sequence. So right when they're getting captured, where it's going back and forth, was hilarious.
Yeah.
Although you couldn't do that dynamic they had in the beginning, you couldn't make that in a movie nowadays, because it's like he sort of kisses her and she says she doesn't like it, and it's that she really wants it, but she's saying no, like that kind of dynamic. You could not do that in a modern movie.
No, but there was all those little throwaway lines that were so good too, where Elsa describes his father as being giddy as a schoolboy, and Indy's instant thing is, what, Attila the Professor? He was never giddy even when he was a schoolboy.
Or the other one was, he's the professor kids pray they don't get.
Yes.
I had a few of those professors.
I had several. Yeah.
But some of those lines were, I just thought it was pretty cool. I liked that.
And again, you know, Elsa does have that almost redeeming moment at the book where she realizes the cost of the power that she's seeking.
And again, when she gives him intentionally the wrong grail, so he gets his justice, because she knew what she was doing.
She knew.
Oh yeah,
She knew.
Mhm.
But
Donovan, typical American. Oh, it certainly is the cup of the King of Kings.
I don't know. Yeah, and so it's just enough. It's just enough to make you care when she dies, instead of going, "Oh yay, she's gone."
Right? Yeah. I mean, you cheered Donovan mummifying before your eyes.
Right.
But Elsa was like,
and that was a popular thing in the 80s and 90s, was hubris being the downfall, because that's ultimately what killed him in the end, because he'd won up until that point. He'd gotten everything he wanted, or at least that he thought he wanted.
right.
And so he just assumed he was going to be good enough to be able to drink it and live forever and outlive Hitler.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, there was, the hidden price of immortality. You can't leave the Grail chamber.
Yeah, you can't leave the room.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
No, was
Kind
it
of hard to rule the world from a Grail chamber. Yeah.
Was it you can't leave the Grail chamber, or the Grail can't leave the Grail chamber?
Well,
I was
Grail.
The Grail can't. The Grail
Right.
can't. Yeah,
Yeah,
but
you can't
but
pass
that's
the
just
great
it.
field.
You can't take it with you and use it, just willy nilly outside the Grail chamber and use it to further your ambitions, because it can't go any further than
The
the
knight
seal.
tells him, that's the cost. It's the price
Yeah,
of
that's the cost.
immortality.
Is you've got to
can't
stay
leave.
here.
You can drink from it and be immortal, but you can't leave.
wait. So is it supposed to be you drink from it once and you're immortal, or you keep drinking from it and keep healing so you're immortal?
You're immortal as long as you're in the same room with the Grail, and that was the whole thing. Once you leave, the effect is gone.
Mm-hmm.
That's why his dad was
not
healed, but he didn't live forever.
Right. Yeah, and Indy doesn't live forever either. So
Although there's a lot of speculation that it did have some lingering effects that let him survive some things and let his dad live a lot longer than he should have at that point.
Yeah. And that makes sense.
Where did that come out?
Did anyone else feel sorry for the Knights Templar that was there? And he's like, I've been here for 700 years, and he can't even lift his sword.
Ready to go.
That's how he gets defeated, is just because he couldn't even pick the sword up. And he's like, and you are here to relieve me. And then they just leave him. He's like, no, sorry.
And he waves, but that's it. Just that one salute.
Now, you do wonder, as you watch everything falling apart because they stepped on the wrong things and all that, you do wonder if it resets, or is now the Grail lost forever because it fell into the gap.
Yeah, it's like a video game. The level resets.
Yes.
And does the knight die because now they've lost the Grail? Does he finally die?
He's an NPC. He comes back.
The Grail respawns in the chamber.
Speaking of NPC, so Stabby found some of the art from some of the old video games.
There we go. Oh.
And this is another one of them.
8-bit graphics, baby. Ooh. Much technical. Very wow.
Wow. Hey, we liked it that way back in the day.
We didn't know any better is what it comes down to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was there anything else you guys like? I liked some of the jokes that they fit in, but it wasn't too like, I'm just trying to be funny. The moments felt more natural, I thought. Whereas modern movies, they're like, look at us, we're making the joke. No, laugh now, we're making the joke. And it's just so blatant that I think it loses its humor most of the time.
Yeah, there's no laugh track required for them.
Yeah. Like when I think of it as an example of Indy, or the dad is asking Indy if he knows how to fly. He says, flying, yeah, landing, not so much. Like that, I was like laughing. And then he's telling him he's supposed to like look at the 11 o'clock. And anybody who's our age grew up, we had the video games, we watched, Tora and all the movies. We knew what he's telling you, point in the direction. And Indy's dad's just pulling out his stopwatch, or looking at the time.
What happens at 11 o'clock? Yeah.
That was, and then when he shoots the tail of his plane, he's like, "Oh yeah, the Nazis got our plane.
They got us.
I'm sorry, son. They got us."
I thought that was great. I did cringe a little bit about how often the German pilots missed, because early in the war they were actually really good pilots. But
they were really stormtroopers piloting those. They weren't Nazis. They were stormtroopers. So
gotcha.
Obviously.
But I mean, you got to respect that bit where the Messerschmitt flies into the tunnel and loses his wings, and pilot's just coasting along in this flaming crate now, and he's just kind of like.
and for a second, you feel sorry for him when he blows up, and they're like, "Oh wait, he tried to shoot them out of the sky."
Wait a minute.
No, he was a jerk. He was a Nazi. Yeah.
But that was a little bit of comedic moment that I liked as well.
Yeah.
And in the crater, like I've seen bombs blow up around me. That's not quite how it works, but they're driving. There's a cut to the explosion scene, and then suddenly they're in a crater that's like, 100 feet deep or whatever. I did think it worked as much as I know it wasn't accurate.
I thought the Order of the Cruciform Sword. That
was on my list to talk about next. So go on.
Society of guys out to protect the secret of the Grail, and they weren't Templars. I thought was dope.
Yeah,
because I was fully expecting Templars, and we did get one, but I was expecting like the secret agent version of the Knights Templar. But no, we get these guys with their fezzes with the cruciform sword on it. It was very cool. I really like those guys.
Yeah,
and I remember it reminded me of the Madeha from the Mummy, the secret order that protected.
Yeah,
which was obviously a lot later. So this was first, but.
Yeah, the inspiration
but yeah,
for it, who knows?
That's possible.
I mean, because the Mummy film, especially the first one, really does harken back to that Indiana Jones type of treasure hunting, archaeologist, pseudo professor type. Although Brendan Fraser, took it to a whole nother level with that.
And the tattoos and the guy was like unapologetic that they were trying to kill him, and they killed a couple people. He's like, at the cost of doing business, my soul's ready to go is yours. I thought that was pretty badass.
That was a great line.
Yeah, that was really great. Yeah, I liked them.
And that's the one Sulla comedic moment I appreciate was when the car gets blown up. Is that car belong to my brother-in-law? I'll give you that one.
Yeah.
It was okay.
And then the follow-up.
Then he steals a bunch of camels to repay his brother-in-law.
Camels are feisty. We actually accidentally killed one in Iraq, and the amount of hoops they had to go through to pay the villagers back, they are pricey.
Yeah.
The camels are mean, and they spit and they bite, so I did not envy the actors having to deal with that.
We had a guy actually almost get shipped home. We were at King Khalid Military City, and there was a camel in a pen that everybody was gawking at. And this one goofy private from Nowheresville, USA, who had never seen a camel before, walks up to it, and it spit on him. And in reaction, he just pulled his rifle off and butt stroked it. And almost killed the thing. And all these Arabs just out of nowhere.
It's called a ulation. That's real. We do that.
And we thought we were all going to die right there. We had just got off the plane, dude. It was not.
They had in one of the bazaars in Kuwait, they actually had one where you could like climb on it and do like the cowboy pose with your hat up and whatever. And I did it. They got the really nice picture. I sent it home to my mother, and then right after they snapped the picture, the camel bucks and threw me on my ass. It was a thing. I don't like camels anymore.
I no longer fun.
I mean, it was a cool prop, but I did like that. So older movies, and by older I mean anything pre-2000, when they had actors doing skills, when they were sword fighting, when they were using guns, when they were riding things, they trained them to do that stuff.
Yeah.
Whereas nowadays, like just fast forward all the fight scenes where it looked like believable, then watch the fight scene in Ahsoka where it looks like it's in slow motion. And if you have to do that, sure, then speed it up in post-production. The amount of time they went in pre-production to train these people to do these things, it's commendable. They don't do that anymore.
You could take that another level back and go to the 30s and 40s and 50s era of the Hollywood studio system, where you had people like Errol Flynn and Guy and all these people who were under contract to do X number of movies a year. And when they weren't actively shooting a movie, they were training. They were riding horses. They were shooting guns. They were learning fencing. They were doing all the things that they ended up doing in the films. And it was part of their deal. They had to train in this stuff to be ready for whatever the next movie was going to be.
And don't forget the dancing, because in that era, there was also the dancing. Yep. So they had to learn to dance. That's where you got the iconic line, anything he can do, I can do backwards in high heels.
And in high
heels.
That's
right. Ginger Rogers. That's right. She is twice the dancer Fred Astaire ever could be.
Yeah.
So I just appreciate the amount of care put into the production. And it really did seem like they liked the product. Nowadays, sometimes I think they're making movies and they hate the franchise, and they're making it anyway. I did not. You don't get any of that vibe from this. It felt like a love letter to the concept.
That's what that one guy that hangs out with Nerdrotic said. Consume product and get excited for next product. That's the mantra now. And the problem is that the product largely is not created with the same care and love that these older products were. And you can see it. Go back and, I mean, I saw some interviews with Spielberg and John Williams just talking about the score and talking about musical moments in the movie and how much love went into this project. And I just don't see a lot of that in modern film. And I know I'm very curmudgeon-y about this and get off my lawn, but I just don't see it in modern products for the most part.
I don't think they have time, even if they wanted to. You know, they're pumping out the commodities. It has to be, you know, one thing after another. And I think if you threw your heart into it, you'd get it broken over and over again. Now, I think the way the movie industry is, I think that's just what would happen. And so I think you're totally right. I think you don't see that anymore.
Well, it's even pitched differently now. I mean, look at it this way. Things somewhere after the 80s, somewhere in the early to mid 90s, the studio system changed. And what they did was, that's good. So you've seen the fanfic idea that Indiana Jones got knocked out and dreamt he was a space pilot with a furry co-pilot, right? And it's just
I've seen that. But did you catch the Easter eggs that were in the City Life, for instance?
No, I totally missed that one. Club Obi-Wan. Wow, that's fantastic. Oh, now that I've seen.
Oh, yeah.
I think my favorite theory on that is that the Indy stories are dreams that Han Solo was having while he was frozen in carbonite.
Oh, that's
great. That's what I meant. That's the one I was talking about. I had it backwards. That's the one. That's the one. And I totally forgot what I was talking about before, so it probably wasn't important.
We got sidetracked by the beautiful images.
But it was that idea that a lot of these, that's how why they have rewatchability. I mean, I recently went and rewatched Raiders and rewatched Last Crusade, and even Temple of Doom, for all that it is the goofiest of that primary three, because we're not talking about Crystal Skull because reasons.
No.
Even for its goofiness, it still has this iconic feel, and I can go back and rewatch them, and I am drawn just as much into it, even though I already know the storylines, I know what's going to happen. I am still right there on the edge, and there's a lot of movies that are generally older that I can do that with. And then I look at the rewatchability, because somebody is always playing the MCU universe movies, and some of them have hints of that, but not nearly as much. And there's a lot of places where if I walk out of the room for 20 minutes, I don't bother pausing it, because I'll just come back and pick up wherever it's at. But if I'm watching Last Crusade, I'm going to pause that sucker, go do the thing I need to do, and come back and start right at that point, because I am engaged. And it's all these things we've talked about, the production, the heart, the actors feel like they're having fun. They want to be there. All of that heart is what brings us and say, this is a movie I'm going to watch over and over again and share with my kids and whatever.
I got some trivia for you. Here's a piece of trivia I just remembered because of what you were saying. Who was the second highest paid actor in Hollywood the year that Temple of Doom came out?
No idea.
Don't look it up, Stabby. Don't.
She's already got it. She's already got it. Tell us, LaVoice.
Tell us.
Dan Aykroyd. Why? Because he was in Temple of Doom.
Yeah.
He's the guy that you only see from a distance explaining everything to Indy as they walk up to the plane and explaining to him he's going to be flying with a crate full of live chickens. That was Dan Aykroyd. He was on screen for 10 seconds, and he got a percentage of the gross. It's my favorite bit of Indy trivia.
And speaking of trivia, one of the things I found out when I was doing my little research was that the dialogue between Indy and his father was punched up by the playwright Tom Stoppard, who wrote one of my favorite plays, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead.
Yes!
And he was really, really in demand. And Spielberg brought him in to say, this is good, but it could be better. And can you take a look at this? So he's not credited as Tom Stoppard. I forget the name he used, like Brokaw or something like that. It's in there as a credit, but he was the one who made that dialogue really sing. And I just, I think that's great that they had the humility to say, hey, come in and do this, because I don't think Spielberg needed any, he knew what he was doing. With bringing in the screenwriter that he did, but the fact that he was able to say, "Look, this could be better, and here's who I want to bring in to make it better."
Yeah, and the dialogue. If you've never seen Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead,
oh my gosh, go watch it.
The dialogue in that is so wonderful, and the film version with Tim Roth and
Gary Oldman.
And who's the guy from Man About You? Paul
Reiser.
That's it, Paul Reiser. It's just wonderful. Love that.
It's a fantastic movie, fantastic play, and Tom Stoppard is just amazing.
So as we wrap this up, we're going to say one of our favorite scenes that we haven't talked about yet, and I'll go first so you guys have time to think about it. The scene where Indy kicks the window in and goes to rescue his dad, and his dad comes behind him with the vase and hits him, and that scene. And he thinks he's getting apologized to for having been hit. And Dad's talking to the Ming vase he thinks he destroyed. And then he's like, oh, it's a fake. You can tell. And suddenly he's okay again. Because for that one moment, he cared because he thought he broke a historic piece of, Ming porcelain.
Yeah,
right.
That was great. That was good.
And the way they wrote that it had so many layers, like if you took it at the surface, he's apologizing to his son for hitting him. If you take it deeper, he's apologizing to the vase. If you go even the next step, he's talking to both of them at the same time.
Right.
It's just there's so many layers there. I love it.
I dug the catacombs bit where they're in the catacombs and they're looking at stuff that's been scribbled or scratched onto the walls. And she goes, "What's this?" He goes, "It's the Ark of the Covenant." She goes, "Are you sure?" "Pretty sure." That's all it said.
That's all it said. They just keep moving.
Yep. And that's all they do. I love that.
What about you, Jay?
Oh, geez. I keep going back to the castle just because of the whole, they're tied together and they can't get in sync. And, it's just like the epitome of their relationship at that point. It's like they're each trying to do their own thing, but not relying on each other. And they have some great one-liners, and it's just very deep moment also. And so it's just kind of, honestly, when I think about the movie, that's the thing that I immediately think about is them having their little back-to-back heart-to-heart
and
had trying to figure out how to work together.
And when they realized, hey, get in the fireplace so we don't get burned up, was kind of cool. And then they inadvertently do the spinning and the secret door
with the Nazis,
which was very reminiscent to growing up watching the Scooby-Doo stuff. And I was, which I was there for.
It's this castle. It's got to have some kind of secret passage.
Yeah.
I mean, if I ever was rich enough, I'm building secret passages like that in my house, but they won't be secret because I'll show everybody. I'm like, hey, y'all, check this out.
I want the house from Clue. That's what I want.
Oh, yeah. That's a great house.
What about you, Jana? What was your favorite scene if you've got one that we haven't talked about already?
Well, we alluded to it, but I love the motorcycle chase, but I love where it leads to because there's that discussion point where there's a bunch of things they discuss in a very short period of time because they talk about his mother, they talk about what the Grail is about and this contest between good and evil, and they're standing there at a crossroad. And so again, you've got this layering going on that they can choose where to go. And are they going to go to Berlin? Are they going to follow this through? Or are they going to go home? And that moment where they finally get on the same page as far as what is this about and what do we need to do? And they go, yeah, this is something that we're dedicated to. And I love that whole interplay. And the thing about, his mother, you never loved her. And he's like, you have no idea what I was going through when we lost her and how that ruined both of us. But there was this chasm that was too deep and what grief does to people. And they played it in just a few minutes, in just a few lines, and yet they said so much about these years worth of a broken relationship. So just the writing there is so clever, and yet it's done so quickly, all standing on a crossroad.
And
That's one of my favorite places.
The other part of that scene that was, as a young boy, I watched. It got me in trouble because I tried to recreate it. But when he grabs the flag and he starts jousting the Nazi with the rifle, I might have grabbed a trash can lid and a broom handle and gotten my friends with bicycles. I'm just saying maybe because of
that was another gaffe though, because if you looked closely at the wheels on those motorcycles, they had they weren't like mag wheels. They had like multiple spokes all the way around, just like a bicycle tire. And that stupid pole never would have fit between those stupid spokes when he threw it. It wouldn't have happened. It would have bounced right off.
Does the motorcycle scene. So they do test that where they throw a thing and it bounces off and it shears. And they're like, even if we could jam it in there, it does not throw the bike up that way. They had a great time with it. But again, they came down to movie magic. So sometimes you just let it go because it's awesome.
Right.
All right. What about you, Melissa?
Okay, so this is not my favorite scene, but it is apparently the scene that stuck with me in memory for decades. And it's the cheesy fake they have when the tank goes over the cliff and it shows the Nazi commander screaming, and it's clearly not a real actor. And for some reason, that stuck with me as a young movie viewer and has been in the back of my head. So when I rewatched the movie recently, I realized that I could picture that clearly right up until the moment that they came to it. And so it's like the one scene I wish I didn't have a memory of, because it just scarred me for life. And I don't know why. It's not like it's that horrible. It's like stop motion animation or something. I don't know what it is, but
is that this film's version of the face melt? Is that what you're saying?
It is. Okay. And in fact, it appears to use the same techniques as the face melt. And well, especially in Raiders, when everybody's dying because of the Ark, it was similar to that technology visually, and so I think I was making a connection to that, which was horrifying to me because I was, of course, much younger when Raiders came out, and so much more impressionable. But that's the scene I wish I did not have in my memory. Of all the wonderful scenes from Last Crusade, why is it I have to remember the Nazi guy going over the cliff in the tank? And
what got me about that scene was the turret just falling off. They don't come easy. Like they can be blown off, but they don't just fall off because you twist it upside down. I've seen tanks roll over. Not how that works, but it did look cool.
It made me wonder as they're doing it, like, was this on purpose or did they just build the model and it fell apart or something? I don't know, but it was creepy. And so in fact, a lot of the scenes that stuck with me were the creepy ones, like when Ilsa is under the sarcophagus and the rats are climbing in her hair.
Oh, I cringed for her.
Yeah, that was pretty.
Bueno.
Yeah, even knowing they're certified disease-free, specially bred rats. No,
with their own wrangler.
Yeah, with their own wrangler. I wondered, how much acting is she doing at this point? But yeah.
Well, the other part of is back in the day, they didn't always tell the actors when certain scenes were happening, so they could get more authentic reaction.
Yeah, I wonder if the spiders were a surprise in the first one.
So we're actually going to, I wrote it down, Stabby. We're going to have to come back and do a Raiders of the Lost Ark review. But speaking of, what was your favorite scene? Because I'm not forgetting you today.
I have a special place in my heart for Indy, just in general. You'll never get me to talk bad about any of the movies, not even Crystal Skull or Dial of Destiny. I love every Indy movie because I see the Indy in every movie. Now there's things I'll nitpick about, like Shia LaBeouf swinging with monkeys, but I see the Indy in it.
That's what you pick out of that one?
Hey, there's you got to remember how dark Stabby's brain is. Okay, so if
fair.
Stabby's brain works the way Stabby's brain works, then of course Stabby's going to believe that there's a possibility that there are aliens that help build the pyramids, because that's how Stabby's brain works. I can completely believe 99% of that movie. Him swinging with monkeys is not one of them. Okay. Just gonna throw that out there. That scene,
that's the hill she's dying on, folks.
All right.
Really? Yeah, because those vines would have ripped. How do I know? Because I was a stupid ass kid one time. But anyway,
All right.
I'll tell you another story when we get off air, because that one I will not say live, because
Okay.
you'll see. But anyways, I love Indy. I love all of them, because I can see it in all of them. I see him following the clues, trying to figure everything out, and I love that about him. But in The Last Crusade, I think the one part that like kind of jerked me out of my body and was like, no, you can't do this, is when they almost squished Indy between the tank and the mountain. I'm like, no, you can't kill him, I need him, you can't kill him. And in that moment I realized that was the scene that got me, because I thought they were going to kill my dude off.
Aw.
Okay. So as we wrap this up, Melissa, what are you writing at the moment? And then where can listeners find you? As usual, all the links are in the show notes.
Okay. So I'm taking a break from War Master, The Living Oracle, and the Books of the Dark Goddess to write a contemporary romance series about a group of gamers, all women, and the men they fall in love with. And yeah, so I'm writing a romance novel. And you can find me at very soon melissamcshane.com, because I finally got that domain, and that thrills me. But for right now, it's melissamcshanewrites.com, and I am on Facebook and on X as M. McShane Writes. So I'm all over the place. And yeah.
Okay. What about you, Jana?
Let's see. Currently, I am working on urban fantasy. I have some things going on with my Vampire Hunter, and I am working on a series that I wrote the first book of way back in the pre-COVID days, and had some good success with it. And then it got shelved while a whole bunch of other life stuff happened. And so it's time to bring it back. So hopefully Fallen Leaves will be getting finished up and see the light of day at some point here. So, and I can be found at opalkingdompress.com and all over the interwebs under Jana Ray or Jana Ray Author or Jana S Brown or other things we don't talk about. Though now if Melissa's going to write romance, then, you know, we'll just have to let our romance pen names become a thing later.
Yeah, I got to get a new pen name. I don't know what I'm going to do.
Got to play to the crowd.
That's right.
When you write your romance, can you do the epic War Hamster romance novel?
Oh my gosh, I totally forgot. No, I'm going to do the War Hamster comic novel. Details to be announced, but
Nice.
War Hamster.
Hey, Athon's doing actually graphic novels now. You may have an in there.
Oh yeah, graphic novel.
JR, I just got an idea for our after hours show.
Okay, we'll talk about that offline because we still got to get the exit. James, what are you writing?
So right now I'm writing the third Felix Chance novel. I'm writing the second Pandora Squad novel, bouncing back and forth between the two of them. And I'm also reviving two kind of shelved projects.
Woo-hoo.
All
One,
right.
I'm in the final editing. Well, not final editing, but revision before I send it off to an editor and pitch it to some publishers this weekend. And then another post-apocalyptic series that I've had in the way back burner for the last dozen years now. I think it's about ready. So, yeah, lots in store.
Very busy.
And where can listeners find you?
halfacrepond.com is my main website. You can also find me on jepittman.com, net.org, whatever. On the socials, Facebook is J.E. Pittman Writes, and on everything else, I'm pretty sure I have j.e.pittman. So you can find me there, check me out, and stay tuned for Off Chance, Felix Chance Volume 3.
Gotcha. LaVoice. What are you writing now, and where can they find you?
I am 26,000 words into book 3 of Gladius Leagues, and that's going to be fun. I've got a publisher lined up for that as soon as book 3 is done, getting a contract. So I'm not saying who until I have that contract, you understand. Then after that, I just had a short story released in the Tales of the E4 Mafia from Henchman Press. And that short story introduces a set of characters and a universe that will be my next series. After I do a little bit of a different military sci-fi series with Three Ravens' very own Peter Stanley.
Nice. And the E4 Mafia episode, we talked about that about 10 episodes ago. So check it out. It'll be episode 416 if you're looking for it. So obviously we're recording these in advance. So it hasn't aired yet as we're speaking, which is why LaVoice is giving me the funny looks. But it will.
Yeah, I forgot. Sorry. It's like doing Late Night with Craig Ferguson. No, we're live. I promise we're live.
So with that, you can find us on our Linktree, linktr.ee, Linktree/Blasters and Blades podcast, where we link to all the things, the BitChutes, the Rumbles, the YouTubes, the TikToks, the Twitters. We have our email, blastersandbladespodcast@gmail.com, for professional purposes only, people. We have our Blasters and Blades Facebook group and Facebook page. And more importantly, we have Madam Stabby Stab on the Instagram, Twitters, and the emails. And if you want to talk to her on the TikToks, she's the one who runs that, working on getting that running. And then finally, we have our website for Spotify over there, where you can support the show for as little as 99 cents a month. You can help keep the lights on, or you can support the show more directly over at buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Be sure to put in the comment section that it's for the podcast, and I promise I will keep my co-hosts duly caffeinated. They will drink the coffee brand coffee until it pours out of their nose, and then we will film it for your glorious entertainment. And with that, thank you for spending some of your precious time with us. For my crazy co-host, I am J.R. Handley, and this was the Blasters and Blades podcast. We'll be back next week at the same time, where we'll indulge our love of nerd culture, cheesy jokes, and all things that go boom. And with that, we're out. Thank you all for coming. This was fun. I have you guys all listed for the review of the Raiders of the Lost Ark, so we will make it happen when we can have all 4 of you back, because we'll get the band back together. I think it's the chemistry for that one episode it just requires it.
I think
so we're gonna make that happen.
Okay.
All right, and with that, we are out. Wait for it.